Hello everyone, back to today's second video, doing Ensembles Watch for today's second video. So we're going to go through all the GFS Ensemble members, including the GFS Operational, Control and Parallel runs. So we've got 20 plus members of the GFS Ensembles to look at, and that's what we'll be doing for tonight's second video. Just to say that earlier on today, we released the GFS Sunday Roundup video. It's currently here on the homepage above Slow Desk. So that's your usual Sunday afternoon, evening, eclectic look at this and that. We're looking at things like solar activity, sea surface temperature anomalies, ENSO, and of course the weather for the next week to 10 days and beyond as well. So have a look at the Sunday Roundup when you're done with Ensembles Watch. So we're going to go for the GFS Ensemble members at webcentral.de. You can find a link to Web Central on the links page at Gazlovis and in the description at YouTube. We're looking for northern blocking. We had the southern stratospheric warming at the end of, it occurred at the end of December. So a few weeks down the line, what we look for is northern blocking and colder weather to push out of the pole via the block. So we're going to be going through the GFS Ensembles, taking us up to the end of January, more or less. And we're going to be looking for signs of northern blocking. I'm going to start off with the latest update from the operational GFS run. This is the highest resolution of all of the GFS Ensemble members, and then we'll go through those GFS Ensemble members one by one. So this is the very latest operational GFS run. This is the midday run of the GFS. And it was starting on Wednesday when we're introducing a cold northerly wind on Wednesday. So that pushes down across the country on Wednesday, and we get a bit of a shot of cold air from the north. Then we bring this area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic. Now this low pressure is coming into cold air, causing all sorts of problems within the model output, this area of low pressure. But as it moves into the cold air, certainly on the northern eastern edge of it, there could be some snow actually with that, and on the southern and western edge probably rain moving in during the course of Friday with that area of low pressure. That low pressure then clears away to the southeast. We pull down quite a cold northeasterly wind as we go through to next weekend. This is Saturday 19th of January, pulling in a cold easterly wind and building a ridge over the top of the country. And then that ridge next weekend keeps us pretty cold, dry and frosty really through much of the weekend until we start to bring down another area of low pressure weather front from the northwest on Sunday. So that begins to push down across the country, coming into cold air with quite cold air behind it. Again, that might be a snow event there on Sunday. Have to look at the exact parameters within the atmosphere, but it certainly looks pretty close to it. And then we return to cold northerly winds into the early part of the following week. So this is up to Tuesday, 22nd of January now. Got a cold northerly wind. It's unstable as well. There's little kinks in the isobars telling us there might be enhanced sort of snow showers moving down across the country on that northerly wind. Now we're moving up towards day 10. We're building a ridge of high pressure in from off the Atlantic. So it's still pretty cold and cold here, and it's mainly dry and frosty. And then we start to try and build up a ridge across Scandinavia. However, there's a lot of energy in the Atlantic. So we've got areas of low pressure churning away close to Greenland and Iceland. No sign of northern blocking at all. That's a strong polar vortex that we've got across Greenland and Iceland. But we are building this ridge up across western Russia and into Scandinavia. So a proper battle is going on there. However, it's the Atlantic that holds sway, and we keep these deep areas of low pressure battering us from off the Atlantic. That's a real storm system there with pretty cold air. So again, that could be heavy rain or snow, possibly blizzards for some places, and severe gales too. That looks very stormy and quite alarming, I have to say, but we're at the very unreliable time frame of the model. And that's how we finish up with this GFS midday run, operational run on Tuesday 29th of January, taking that low pressure away into the North Sea and returning back into quite a cold northerly wind. So no northern blocking with the operational GFS run tonight, but a couple of snow events, 2 or 3 snow events going up to kind of like, when's it changed, coming along, so it's around 23rd of January, so it's the 23rd of January from next weekend to around Wednesday 23rd of January, there's 2 or 3 snow events. Then after that we have a battle going on between high pressure to the east and low pressure to the west. That's stall that's going on there on the 26th of January. That could be another little snow event, actually, depending on the exact parameters of the atmosphere. So fairly chilly, wintry, and unsettled GFS 12Z operational run. Right, let's start going through the ensembles then. So let's set the scene of what the operational do. Let's see what all the other options are. So we're looking at the control run first of all. So this is run at a slightly lower resolution compared to the operational run, the run we're just looking at, but at a higher resolution compared to all other members of the GFS ensembles. Again, we're starting on Wednesday when we're introducing this cold northerly wind. There's that low pressure coming in on Thursday into Friday. That could bring some snow to northern parts of the country on the northern side of that low. The low slips away to the south and we pull in a pretty cold northeasterly wind, and then this weather system starts moving in from the northwest. Again, it's coming into cold air. There's cold air behind it, so that might be some sort of snow around the 21st to 22nd of January, and then this low pressure begins to slip away to our south and we start to pull in cold winds from the east. We are raising the heights to our north, you'll notice, so really raising the heights to the north, proper northern blocking setting up there. And that looks like it's developing a prolonged cold spell by trying to get through to the end of January. This is 26th of January. Real northern blocking around Iceland, Scandinavia. Proper easterly winds. Those easterly winds will be bringing in snow, maybe quite heavy snow from the east. And that's a really cold control GFS run. That's how we finish up. We're taking the heights over towards Greenland by the time we get through to 29th of January as far as we can go. So very extensive northern blocking with that one, and that's a pretty cold and wintry GFS control run tonight. This is ensemble member number 1, bringing that northerly wind down on Wednesday, and then we go through into the early part of next week, not making anywhere near as much of that area of low pressure through Friday. You'll notice just slipping away to our west with ensemble member number 1. Then we build a ridge over the top of the country next weekend within quite cold air. And then we start to get northern blocking beginning to appear again. So this is going the same way as the control, I think. We've got high pressure building to our north, pulling in a cold northeast wind. That will bring snow showers in with it. Let's see what happens after that. So we get through to around the 25th of January. We're building high pressure over Scandinavia, pulling in a proper bitterly cold easterly wind there. Ensemble member number 1, and we're staying blocked really as we go through to the end of January. No sign of that high pressure going anywhere fast really. So although we cut off that east-northeasterly wind that we do get a few days before, we keep high pressure going across the country, so it remains dry and very cold and frosty. This is ensemble member number 2 with the northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday, and then we go through to the early part the latter part of next week, bring that low pressure in across the country. Again, there might be some sort of rain snow event with that, and then another low pressure fires along behind. This is Sunday the 20th of January with more low pressure moving in from off the Atlantic. Again, that could bring rain or snow as that slips away to the south by the time we get through to Monday the 21st and Tuesday 22nd of January, pulling a cold, bitterly cold east-northeasterly wind. That could bring snow to many parts of the country. Then we're going into more extended range. Ensemble member number 2, and it's looking increasingly cold. We're starting to move the high pressure up to Greenland. There it goes with bitterly cold, gale force northerly winds plunging down across the country. Look at that northern blocking close to Greenland. That is proper northern blocking that we've got there as we're going into the closing days of January with a very cold and snowy northerly wind developing. That's how we finish up with ensemble member number 2, bitterly cold with low pressure close to the country and really locked in northern blocking across Greenland as well. Ensemble member number 2 turns very cold towards the end of January. Ensemble member number 3 with northerly winds being introduced on Wednesday, and then we go through the course of next week. If we move it along, there we go, and we start to bring this area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic, but everything's being pushed southwards, you notice, as high pressure is building to the north of the UK. So again, we've got signs of blocking here. We're going towards day 10, and again, it looks like ensemble member number 3 is moving that high pressure up to Greenland and pushing low pressure down across the UK. That's bringing heavy snow across many parts of the country and introducing a bitterly cold northerly wind. These ensemble members are already much more wintry compared to the GFS operational run. We're going towards the closing days of January, looking very cold in the closing days of January, with high pressure blocking in the middle of the Atlantic and pushing up towards Greenland. Real northerly winds pushing down across the UK. That's another very cold and wintry ensemble member for the final week of January, proper northern blocking. Ensemble member number 4, there's that northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday, and then we move low pressure in across the country again towards the end of next week or this week. That could bring some snow on the northern edge of that low pressure. I think we'll probably get snow watch going within the next few days, to be honest. Then that gets out of the way. We build a ridge up over the country next weekend. That's mainly dry, cold and frosty conditions before more low pressure moves down across the country. Again, coming into cold air and has cold air behind it, so that could bring some snow to parts of the country. And then once that moves to our south, we're under a ridge of high pressure, so mainly dry, cold and frosty. It doesn't look like this one is going to produce northern blocking, although having said that, here we go, we're moving up towards the, not sure what's gone wrong there, we're moving up towards the closing days of January, and we are starting to take that high pressure out to towards Greenland, so we're pulling in a cold or very cold easterly wind there right at the very end. That's how we finish up on the 29th of January with that high pressure out west of Ireland. Starting to bring some slightly milder air around the top. I think that's one of the less extreme ensemble members so far, number 4. This is number 5, and we have that northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday. And then we run through to the end of next week, and we start to bring this area of low pressure in from the Atlantic. It's that movement of that low pressure is interesting. It's varying from model run to model run. Eventually, by the time we get through to next weekend, that low pressure is slipping away into the continent. We're putting in this cold east to northeast wind. That could bring snow showers, particularly to eastern parts of the country. Then this low pressure is developing to the northwest of the country on Tuesday, 22nd of January, big area of low pressure, and that's slipping down through the UK, so that could bring heavy rain, heavy snow, gale force winds, you name it. It could all be happening with an area of low pressure. That looks rather extreme, I have to say. By the time you get through to Thursday the 24th of January, we've got that low pressure across southern England, and sort of gale force winds wrapped around it, and pretty cold air has been entrenched into that low as well, so that could bring blizzards, I would have thought, to some parts of the country, depending on the exact nature of the upper air temperatures. Once that gets out of the way, then we start to build high pressure for a time before low pressure returns from off the Atlantic, finishing up a little bit milder there with ensemble member number 5, but still signs of northern blocking. Ensemble member number 6 has that cold front moving down across the country as we go into Wednesday, and then low pressures following along behind it. That could bring rain and snow for the end of next week. Then we're into northerly winds next weekend as that low pressure clears away to our east. Let's carry on running through and what's going to become of this one. So low pressures continue to move in from off the Atlantic. This is a milder option. Number 6 says rain moving in from off the Atlantic and no particular northern blocking. This one's perhaps a little bit more in line with the operational GFS run. Northerly winds returning by the 26th of January, and then we're going into the closing days of the month, bringing these areas of low pressure in from off the Atlantic. Again, there's pretty cold air around those areas of low pressure, but the northern blocking scene is quite a bit weaker there with ensemble member number 6. Ensemble member number 7 has the northerly winds being introduced on Wednesday, and then we bring that low pressure in through the end of the coming week, or the end of this week, more to the south though with this one, so there's a greater risk of snow for parts of the country, I would have thought, on Friday, Saturday with that area of low pressure. Then we build high pressure over the country next weekend, mainly dry but cold and pretty frosty conditions too. More low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic then through the early part of the following week. This is Tuesday 22nd of January. That could again bring snow to parts of the country, and then that area of low pressure is clearing away to the south again. So there's this idea within model output of around 22nd, 23rd of January, we get this big low slipping down across the country, and that acts as a trigger to start pulling in very cold air, potentially from the east and from the northeast, as blocking begins to get going to the north of the UK. This one looks like it's trying to get that high pressure up towards Scandinavia in the closing days of January. So we're up to the 29th of January, and we're pretty locked in to cold conditions, proper northern blocking to the north of Scotland, bringing in these easterly winds. That's cold, and that block isn't going anywhere fast. This is ensemble member number 8. Again, there's that northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday. Then we bring the low pressure in from off the Atlantic through Thursday and Friday. Then more low pressure following on behind. And again, that is running into cold air, so there is a risk of a couple of snow events there at the very least. That low pressure then dives away to the south. We pull in these cold easty winds and start to move the high pressure up to Greenland. So this is a much colder one. Again, the high pressure is pushing up to Greenland. We're bringing the trough down across the UK and western parts of Europe. Bitterly cold air being fed into the UK with low pressure, bringing a risk of substantial snow as well. And we're going towards the closing days of January, and there we are, we're properly locked into cold conditions again. Easterly winds screaming in from sort of Russia with this one, so that's a very wintry ensemble member number 8 up to the end of January. There's some really cracking ensemble members this tonight with Ensembles Watch if you want cold weather. This is ensemble member number 9. Again, low pressure is moving in from off the Atlantic, but again on a different track. So that low pressure is still causing all sorts of problems within the model output. And then we've got winds in from the west. So this looks like going to be a little bit of a milder ensemble member actually, until this low pressure is slipping away to our south on the 23rd of January, and we start to pull in these colder easterly winds. Once again, some blocking up to the north, and that keeps us mostly dry, but very cold as we go into the closing days of January. That's how we finish up, again building up the heights around Greenland, and that just looks like it's going into a prolonged cold spell of weather, although there is low pressure in the Atlantic its way to our south, so that again increasing the blocking scene close to Greenland. Ensemble member number 10, with that northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday. Wednesday is the day but we start to feel the chill, and then the low pressure comes in from off the Atlantic. This is on a more southerly track, this low pressure at the end of the week, and possibly bring a little bit of snow with it. Then another low pressure follows along behind, that one diving southwards, and we get this high pressure building to the northwest of the UK. Do we take that high pressure up to Greenland with this ensemble member? It looks like we're going to, so we start to pull down very cold air from the north, perhaps just on the periphery of the very cold air of ensemble member number 10. The coldest of the air looks like it's kept over Scandinavia, but we finish up pretty blocked. Look at that, we're locked into cold conditions. High pressure is through Iceland and Greenland. The trough is over Scandinavia. Again, that is really extensive northern blocking, I have to say. Then it's ensemble member number 11, and we've got the northerly winds on Wednesday. Then the low pressure comes in off the Atlantic into that cold air through the end of the week into the following week. There's that low pressure diving into the UK from the northwest, but it does not look like we're going to get northern blocking with this one. So this one is more in line with the operational run. We keep these areas of low pressure moving in from off the Atlantic, very little in the way of northern blocking until the very end anyway, when we're starting to raise heights towards Greenland and Iceland, and potentially then starting to move into a colder situation. But ensemble member number 11 is a milder one. Ensemble member number 12, with the northerly wind being introduced through the middle of the week, then low pressure follows on behind, and then that low pressure clears away into the continent. We build a ridge over the country next weekend, could bring dry and frosty conditions for a time before low pressure heads in off the Atlantic. So it's Monday 21st of January when it looks like there's probably a snow event going on across most parts of the country. Then in the more extended range, do we get high pressure towards Greenland with this one? So it looks like we do. We've got low pressure off the east coast of Scotland. We're building a ridge through the Atlantic and going up towards Greenland, turning increasingly blocked with ensemble member number 12 in the closing days of January. That's how we finish up, a massive blocking feature from Scandinavia through to Greenland, bringing in bitterly cold air from the east. That's a cold ensemble member number 12. Number 13, again, there's that northerly wind through the course of Wednesday. Then the end of this week turns unsettled as low pressure heads in from off the Atlantic. That clears away to the south. We build a ridge next weekend, and then we go into the more extended range, bringing low pressure back in from off the Atlantic, but with not much of a blocking signal with this one. So this is going to be a milder option, quite unsettled, quite stormy, at times quite cold, particularly for northern parts of the country. You would expect snow with that scenario. That's how we finish up. Not all that much northern blocking with ensemble member number 13, but still quite cold with the wind coming in from the north. Ensemble member number 14, again, we've got those northerly winds being introduced through the middle of this coming week, and then at the end of the week, the low pressure coming in on a different track again. That's a little bit more to the south and southwestern part of the country. We had a ridge over the UK for next weekend, mostly dry, frosty and cold. Then we start to pull the heights out into the Atlantic and move them up towards Greenland, and heights are building over Scandinavia as well as this low pressure slipping down across the UK, bringing cold conditions and increasingly snowy conditions, I would have thought, with that area of low pressure as the winds turn into the east. That's a real easterly hitting us there on the 25th of January with that high pressure blocking things out to the north of the UK. That's a very cold and wintry ensemble member. Once again, that's how we finish up with ensemble member number 14, low pressure over Scandinavia and a massive block around Greenland. That's very cold and wintry for the end of January. This is number 15, and again we're moving this low pressure in across the UK, slipping it to the south at the end of the week into next weekend, so quite cold the next weekend. And then with this one we build a ridge over the country and start to move up towards Scandinavia. Low pressures heading in from off the Atlantic. So this is a milder option, number 15. No particular northern blocking, and the attempt to get high pressure into Scandinavia is unsuccessful. That's a milder option, number 15, perhaps the mildest that we've seen so far. Number 16, again, has that northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday. Then we bring the low pressure into that through Friday into next weekend. Looks pretty cold through the course of next weekend. And then we start to build this ridge up in the middle of the Atlantic and move low pressure to the south of the UK, so turning increasingly cold and wintry there with ensemble member number 16 as we move into the closing days of January. That's how we look. Again, not as impressive with northern blocking as some of the ensemble members have been, but wind is in from the north and it looks pretty cold with ensemble member number 16. Ensemble member number 17, again we've got that northerly wind being introduced on Wednesday. Then we build a ridge through the country from the north next weekend, mainly dry, frosty and cold, before low pressure heads in from off the Atlantic. That looks like a snow event that's going on there across many parts of the country around Monday the 21st of January with that low pressure. And then as that slips away to the south, cold conditions are maintained over the UK. We're going into the extended range and we're not building up the heights to our north with this one. So after that colder spell around the sort of 21st of January, looks like we end January on a slightly milder note of ensemble member number 17. This ensemble member number 18, and again we've got those northerly winds being introduced on Wednesday before low pressure moves into those northerly winds, bringing the risk of snow to northern parts of the country on Friday. Then quite a cold weekend next weekend. Into the extended range, we have this area of low pressure developing over the top of the UK within quite cold air. There is wintry potential with that. How much northern blocking are we going to get with this one? Not as much as some of them have been doing, so that's how we finish up with low pressure out to the west. That again is a milder option. Ensemble member number 18. Ensemble member number 19 has the cold front moving down across the country on Wednesday, and then going to a dry, frosty and cold weekend next weekend before this low pressure pushes into, or tries to push into the UK, but actually it slips to the west of Ireland. And then we go up towards day 10 and we build the ridge in the Atlantic and pull down this trough into the UK from sort of Iceland, and that's pretty cold and wintry conditions moving down across the country. This one's pulling in a proper easterly wind in the closing days of January with low pressure to the south. High pressure is over Scandinavia but also extends out towards Iceland and Greenland. That's a bitterly cold end to January there, with particularly for England and Wales actually close to these areas of low pressure a risk of very significant snowfall. And then finally we've got ensemble member number 20 with the cold front moving down across the country on Wednesday. Low pressure moves into that with a risk of rain for the south, snow probably for the north. Next weekend looks mostly dry, frosty and cold. Where do we go beyond that? Well, we've got this area of low pressure out to the northwest of the UK, so it doesn't look like this one's going to do anything particularly spectacular for blocking. Although we finish up sort of in between actually, between cold and milder conditions. It isn't as impressive ensemble member number 20 with the blocking signal. Just see how the parallel run is looking. So this will become the main operational GFS run at some point this year. Not sure whether they're going to switch this over, but at some point this will become the main operational GFS run. And that's how it is on Wednesday. Bring that cold front down across the country. Then we move, or try to move, this area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic. Rain or snow risks with that around Friday and into Saturday. Let's carry on with the parallel. And another low pressure is moving in from the northwest again, coming into quite cold air, so the risk of some sort of rain or snow. And that low pressure is diving southwards as we go through to Wednesday the 23rd of January, again up towards day 10, looking increasingly wintry. That low pressure slipping to our south, that becoming a cut-off low to our south, pulling in this very cold air from the east. There is a risk of snow with that. Then we build a ridge through the country, and we're looking pretty dry but very cold as we go into the closing days of January. It does start to break the Atlantic through right at the very end. Around 360 hours, the Atlantic begins to break through, turns a little bit milder and a little bit more unsettled, but of course that's too far away to be concerned about. Basically, the parallel is in line with most of these GFS ensemble members in moving this low pressure down from Iceland into the UK, cutting it off to the south and pulling in some very cold and potentially quite snowy weather from the east. So a lot of cold ensemble members. Let's just see how the graph is looking finally. So if we just go to there, and then we're going to be looking at Loughborough, because that's the last ensemble location that we looked at. If we just go to there, that's how they're looking. Actually, that's from yesterday, annoying. So the graph hasn't yet updated. That's how the graph was looking for Loughborough with yesterday's midday run. Hasn't updated. I can show you the 6 o'clock run that we included in the earlier video. It's from 6 o'clock today. And what we see is that cold again. We are very much focused on cold conditions from around middle of this week. Few of those ensemble members going into the freezer. And annoyingly, if this had updated, I think we probably would have seen a few more sort of freezer type ensemble members there, because quite a few of them were producing massive northern blocking around Greenland. So it's a little bit annoying that that hasn't updated, but never mind. We've got the gist of what's happening, and increasing signs of wintry weather for the final week to 10 days of January, in line with what we've been talking about in the videos, possibly even getting locked into a very extensive northern blocking pattern by the end of the month. There is the potential there for kind of like freezing cold type conditions by month's end. But of course, that's a very long way off. What we're going to focus on initially anyway is just colder and more unsettled. There is a potential here for snow events starting as early as around Friday or Saturday, and then going into the following week. The risk of snow looks like it's increasing. So I reckon we'll be getting snow watch going very, very shortly, within the next day or so. I think you could well be seeing a snow watch turning up. Right, that's it for your videos for today. Hope you found them enjoyable and informative. We'll be back tomorrow, bringing you up to date with all of the latest developments, so come back for that then. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.